At IHM VCU, we've always been here for you. You are and always will be our top priority. We care about your financial health, and we are here. IHM VCU is a proud supporter of WQPT.
Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Singh Group at Merrill, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 35 years.
Rethinking Davenport's Hilltop and bringing the music back to the streets on Fridays in the cities. Summer is almost upon us, and Chord is ready to start jamming in the courtyard, as well as on the stage for some of the very youngest musicians. We'll have more on that in a moment, but first, updating a plan that was really the stepping stone to Davenport's once neglected Hilltop Village. Well, this area has grown into a much bigger area, and it's been 15 years since the original plans for the Hilltop neighborhood were pretty well conceived. A lot has changed since then. Brian Kramer, the executive director of the Davenport Hilltop Village, joined us to talk about the plans moving forward for this gateway to downtown. I guess for some people, what exactly is Hilltop Village?
So the Hilltop Campus Village is a national Main Street district that was formed back in 2009. The basic geographic boundaries would be from south to north, 5th Street to Vanderveer Park, and then from east to west, Ripley to Perry Street.
Okay.
And then it encompasses both Palmer's campus and St. Ambrose's campus. So in areas, we technically go all the way to Gaines Street, and we go all the way to Pershing Street in Davenport.
Because when I think of it, I just think of busy Harrison Street.
Brady, yep. That's
and Brady as well.
Right, but that's exactly what people think. And,
Yeah.
and it basically sticks to that. When people, when you're giving a common geographic, it's the Brady-Harrison Street corridor.
And I do know that in so many different ways, and I know you want to address this as well,
Yeah.
is that you advertise as the gateway basically to downtown.
Yeah.
In so many different ways. But the problem with this area is you have two major one-way streets. And I know that in the past, Hilltop, they've wanted to make Harrison and Brady two-way traffic because it slows people down, and rather than rushing through this neighborhood and this district, it becomes more friendly.
Yeah, that has been the talk in the past, and I think turning one ways to two ways in Davenport has become the third rail politics, especially after the downtown partnership and 3rd and 4th Street. I think that, to be fair to the city of Davenport, they would have to take on, when you're talking about one ways, and we talked to the National Main Street about this, and they were trying to help us, and then they realized what our problem is. We're not talking about 3 or 4 blocks of roadway that we would like to turn back to one way or two ways. We're talking about if the city were to get back one of those streets, because one of those streets would have to be 61, Highway 61. Mm-hmm. They'd be putting on like $1 billion worth of infrastructure, onto their budget, and it just would not. I mean, from a financial standpoint, it just does not sound doable. Now, with that being said, to find ways to slow down traffic to make it a more inviting neighborhood, I think there are plenty of strategies we could implement. Whether that be a road diet of some sort, or creatively painting in the bump outs so that they catch the eye, they slow the traffic down, things like that. I think that there's some room with working with the city of Davenport and Iowa DOT. Those are things that we could work with, but I have to admit, we're not talking about 5th Street to Vanderveer Park, turning back to two ways. We're talking about like River Drive all the way out to, I think it's like Kimberly. So you're talking about 2 or 3 miles of cement that you would need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And like you said, infrastructure would be very expensive
Right.
now. So you have finished a survey. What have you
Right.
heard from people that they do want to see, as well as the merchants and the people that live in that area?
More walkability, more
Okay.
safety. We had about 271 people fill out our survey, which actually, when I asked the city of Davenport, they said that that was wonderful because, a lot of people just don't want to take surveys. We did community wide. We sent out, we promoted on social media. We sent out mailers. We've done charrettes, community meetings. Like I said, 271 people did the survey. We had about 50 people do the charrettes, the actual face-to-face sort of qualitative meetings. And people have pointed out like a lot. One, safety, once again, better lighting, better walkability.
What does safety mean?
That's actually what we tried to really quantify or qualitatively create, understand with the charrettes, with the focus groups. Because a lot of people talk about safety, like what are you really talking about? And the neighborhood is so massive. A lot of it was just walkability, lighting, better way, multimodal, finding ways that we can create.
So safety
bikeable
more as a
term.
pedestrian or as a person
Yeah.
that stops and is shopping or eating there.
Yeah, so like one feature that people talk about, actually in the survey, nobody really said that, parking was a major concern between business owners and the residents. But for somebody coming from the outside, they may not understand where the parking is. And as you're pointing out, Brady and Harrison Street can be a little intimidating. We have plenty of parking in the Hilltop. I have a lot of public parking in the Hilltop. But it's, once again, finding that wayfinding or those signage that people can say, oh, I know I can park in this area without being fined or anything like that. Yeah.
So I interrupted you. So
Yeah.
the survey has been, what wealth of information have you gotten from both the one-on-one interviews where you get to dive down into the information and get so much more, as well as just the survey?
I think the real wealth of information that we've gotten out of this is the qualitative data I had a feeling going into this that when we did the surveys, people were going to bring up, safety. We've heard that over the years. We've done sort of general surveys. This was just the natural first step that we had to we had to test our theories as to what they would say. It was the charrettes where we took a map, Streamline Architects. We did these focus groups. We put a map out and we actually asked people like, can you identify the intersection that you feel is dangerous? Or like, to your point, like, what do you mean by safety? Is it this intersection? Do we need to really think about asking the city of Davenport to redo this intersection so that it's more pedestrian friendly? Is it walkability? Is it the lighting? Like, oh, hey, I would go to the Brood Book if I could get there, if I knew a safe pathway to get there.
From point A to point B.
Point A to point B. St. Ambrose, we were talking to some students. We had a really good conversation with them. And we actually started looking at this, and you instinctively think that the intersection that they would cross would be there at Locust and Brady Street, but that's not really pedestrian friendly.
Not at all.
And then we were actually talking about this, and I was thinking like, okay, what would be the safest crosswalk for students? And I'm thinking like, what really kind of scared me a little bit was it might not actually be in the Hilltop. It might be just outside the Hilltop. So do we need to come up with a strategy of creating that inviting entrance point to the neighborhood actually outside of our area, and then creating creative lighting and widening sidewalks, that kind of stuff.
Because among some of the busiest intersections in Davenport are Locust. It's Locust in Brady, Locust in Maine even, and Locust in Harrison. And that can be intimidating to anybody.
Right. And it does. You can tell. And to your point about like the Palmer students crossing Harrison Street, they are crossing, Palmer College would love that whole 2-block area to be safer for their students. So it's a point that they have brought up to me several times that with this plan, they want to see more strategies in how we can create that 2-block sort of safer, sort of calming somehow calming the traffic.
Sure, slow it down. Yeah.
But it is to get, like, we will do these surveys, and the funniest thing that, it wasn't just this survey. Every year I put out just sort of a general survey, just asking people. The funniest thing that I get out of this from the students at Palmer and St. Ambrose, and especially St. Ambrose, is, you'll ask, what kinds of businesses would you like to see, like, in the neighborhood? And they're like, sooner or later somebody will say, we need a coffee shop. I have half the Quad City Coffee Trail in the Hilltop.
I was gonna say
we have some of the best coffee places in town, and it's like the fact that these college students actually were like, well, we'll go to Dunn Brothers over in Bendorf. And I'm thinking, like, really?
But these are local brew houses.
Yes.
Run by local people. That is an interesting fact. What else have you heard as far as what people want to see? Because we've talked a lot about safety, but usually when you think about it, you kind of want to build up the retail in that area.
Yeah.
And you've seen some success.
We've seen some success. I think the interesting thing that we need right now in that neighborhood is I need an anchor business, either a brewery, a good evening burger joint, something that draws people into the neighborhood.
You do have a restaurant, but it's more of a daytime breakfast, lunch.
So we have Rock's Anchor there, and we have Village Inn. We have a lot of great morning to noon places. It's that, noon to 10 o'clock or noon to 8 o'clock sort of dinner business that we don't have.
Well, that's one of those things that it's hard to be the first.
Right, exactly.
Because you have to be a destination. So
Right.
so tell me a little bit about how, let's start with the fact that the whole reason why you're doing the survey is to come up with a new master plan for the area.
Right.
The last master plan was done some 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Can I take you back to that? Because I know you've looked at that master plan. What succeeded and what challenges still need to be met from that plan?
So I wouldn't say there was a plan. It was just, they got to where we're at right now, where everybody said, oh, we want safety, and this is how we would go about it. And then the board of the Hilltop and other stakeholders came together and were like, okay, we're going to do lighting. And so that became the sort of phased-in campaign. Okay, we're going to do better walkability through lighting. Well, we were doing it over 15 years instead of just doing it like over 2 or 3 years, that kind of thing.
But the other big deal, too,
Right.
and I'm sorry to interrupt you again, the other big deal was to fill empty storefronts.
That too.
And that was huge over the last 15, 20 years for Hilltop.
And so it's kind of like some of those, once again, the anchor businesses, they kind of left. Greatest Grains,
Right.
That family retired out of the grocery business. That was a huge, they were in business for 40 years. It's finding some of those larger anchor reasons to come to the neighborhood during the day. People always bring up grocery stores. We have Aldi's. We have some really great businesses, but they're kind of the ones that you drive into the neighborhood and you're like, okay, I'm going to get my cup of coffee, or I'm going to go get a couple of things at the grocery store, and then I go on.
It's not a destination, it's an afterthought almost.
Yeah. So in some ways, going back to your point about creating that destination, when I say anchor store, a perfect example of the downtown partnership in Davenport was they had plenty of housing in the early 2000s, and they had Crescent Lofts and all that stuff. That stuff got built up, I think 2002, 3, somewhere in there. But like that whole end of Davenport, there was nothing still. And then what happened was Great River Brewing Company came along. And then it slowly became, that's when people started showing up down there. And then other businesses came along and they were like, hey, there's a crowd of people down here. You can stay all day pretty much.
Right. Well, it becomes a hip place, so to speak.
Right.
So to speak.
And so it's funny that, like, we don't have that business that sort of draws the people in, because I think we have a lot of hip retail and other establishments. A really great business is 563 Vintage. Those guys, it sounds crazy, but they take old T-shirts that they find at garage sales and vintage and resale stores. They dry clean them, they put them back on the rack. They bought them for like $25, and they're selling them for $25. But they like have a hip going business where I've seen kids standing in line when they're doing a t-shirt sale outside their store. Brewed Book, people kind of forget about the Brewed Book, which is really kind of weird, but like people walk into the Brewed Book. It's a used bookstore if you're not familiar with it, and they have a nice coffee venue, probably the best coffee. Well, not maybe the best coffee in the Quad Cities, but it is a good place.
You're selling the neighborhood.
I am, and Tony and his son run a great business there. Anyways, people always walk into the Brewed Book and they're like, I never knew this existed. And they're like, I'm looking for a quiet place to have a meeting with somebody or just a quick business meeting. And they walk into the Brewed Book and they're like, I'm going to bring my business back here. This is perfect.
So as always, I mean, you're going to do a study. Is that always the key? Is marketing?
Sometimes it is marketing, but you also have to start creating that sense of place. And some of that comes out of marketing. But once again, I go back, you kind of have to have some other key components like that anchor place that people, it's kind of like a flash in the pan. It's like we can do all the marketing. Everybody comes to the Hilltop and they're like, yeah, this is great stuff. And I'm going to come back. But it's not that thing that's like, every Saturday I'm coming back to this neighborhood.
Sure.
So,
yeah. So the survey's done. You've got the information. The next step, of course, is to come up with a plan, some strategic plan, and then the key is to implement it.
Right.
So the road ahead is not easy.
No, it's not. So right now we are looking to have the plan completed at the end of the year, so around Christmas time. And we'll be unveiling that to the public. This summer, my plan is to kind of have sort of at first phase or something to show for our annual meeting. So we'll be putting out some press releases for that. We'll also be releasing, I think we will be posting the results of the surveys. Right now, the architects are kind of formally putting that into a plan, and I'm supposed to be reviewing that next week. And but I've already seen a lot of the data. And so, as we start to put those pieces together from that plan, then we'll start looking at grants to apply for and actually creating a funding, that first phase and how we're going to fund that and, what partnerships we need to build to move on.
Because the key also is, I mean, you've got a number of retailers, you've got a whole association.
Yeah.
Getting them on board as well and with one strategic idea won't be easy as well because everyone has kind of a belief on how whatever plan you do will benefit them or benefit their neighbor.
I think the funny thing, a lot of people, it's like one of those Venn diagrams. You think that they're going to like that the area that everybody
will agree on
is like small. But I think Palmer, St. Ambrose, the city of Davenport, even the business association, the property owners, there's a lot larger space of common ground there that people will be able to buy into, and so once again it's presenting that plan to them and saying like this is the idea, this is the direction we would like to go. And so you're right, getting them to sign on to it might seem kind of daunting, but once again, they are looking for movement in this neighborhood. So, yeah.
Our thanks to Brian Kramer, the Executive Director of the Davenport Hilltop Village. In a moment, Common Chord wants your kids to start rocking. But first, we're just days away from the start of June. Yes, we're already quickly heading into summer. So here's some great events that you might want to check out with your family and your friends, thanks to Visit Quad Cities.
Check out the things to do this week in the Quad Cities. Watch the Quad Cities River Bandits in action on May 28th at Modern Woodman Park. Then you can catch Nikki Glaser at her Alive and Unwell tour on May 29th at the Adler Theater. Listen to 3 on the Tree at the Tanglewood on May 30th starting at 7 p.m. Then experience a prehistoric adventure at Putnam's Dino Days on May 31st and June 1st. Finally, check out Chalk Art Fest, a vibrant 2-day street art festival on May 31st and June 1st. For more events like these, check out our events calendar at visitquadcities.com.
The Live at 5 free summer concert series is about to kick off June 6th at the Skybridge Courtyard in downtown Davenport. It brings some great concerts to the heart of the community to end your work week and really to kick off your weekend. But its organizer, Chord, is also gearing up for the kids as well. The popular band camp, Kidstock, is getting ready for another summer in the days ahead. So CJ Parker with Chord joined us. Live at 5 is going to be kicking off. I mean, it adds a little bit of life to the downtown area.
Absolutely.
I mean, tell me why it's important. I mean, you are playing at it, but you're also booking them, right?
Yeah. So Live at 5 is such a cool thing. We have it on the courtyard. A whole bunch of people come out, and it's free. The cool thing about the Quad Cities is that we have tons of live music that's free. You can go anywhere in the Quad Cities and find free live music every day of the week. And I'll argue anybody down on that. But Live at 5 specifically is a great chance to see some of the up-and-coming bands and also the bands that have been here for a while. So Ten of Soul is opening up. I'm in Ten of Soul, and they're a band that's been out for 15 or so years, and they always bring a good crowd. And then we have other bands like the Quad City Rock Academy, who's opening for us, and their education group, who has a bunch of different groups of different ages, and we have them open for us all the time. So.
Well, it's also a great use of the Skywalk Courtyard.
Yes.
Which can easily be forgotten as a venue.
Totally.
And so I mean, what I liked about Live at 5 is a couple things. One is outdoors. And it's Friday.
Yep. Friday.
It is the kickoff of the weekend.
It's great. So, like, not only that, it looks really cool. The stage fits perfectly. We got the bar on the side, so everybody's having fun. They're doing the thing. And on top of that, we'll have, food across the street. We have vendors and things like that. So it ends up being a great experience. And the first one that we're doing, the kickoff one, we're actually going to have our silent disco. It's going to be after. So we have the show.
I've never heard of this.
So check this out. So we have the show on the street. We're going to block off 2nd Street, and we're going to have the show there. And then after the show, immediately after, where the courtyard is going to be 3 DJs and the silent disco, which is you put headphones on and you click on, you pick a DJ basically. And the DJ you're listening to is the color that's your headphones. So you see a whole bunch of people just like dancing around, and if you don't have the headphones on, it just looks stupid. It just looks like everybody's just, but it's such a cool experience, and it's such a good family thing. Bring your kids and things like that.
Can you share headphones?
Yeah.
Okay. Of course you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why are you enjoying this song more than I am? Right. Let me grab your headphones.
For sure. So I think what we ask is we give, they give their ID, and then you can have the headphones for the night. It's such a cool thing.
Bringing music, like you said, I mean, having free venues, having free events is so critically important. Chord is really big on at least trying to get as much entertainment going.
Absolutely.
It is really, in so many different ways, a way to improve the community and the livability of a community.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's not even just as a musician and as an artist, but also working with Chord, I've seen both parallels. I've seen the organization that's trying to do the best that they can to support, and the artist trying to do the best that they can to go out and play. And I think Chord does a great job of mending those both together. So we have shows at the Redstone where people can pay to get an amazing experience from a touring band, and then we have stuff like Live at 5 where it's free and you can go check it out. And then we have the Big 9 concert series with the city of Davenport, which is also big. You can see stuff on the riverfront. So there's a lot of opportunities to see music on different scales.
And Chord, it's also really, I mean, I always thought it was just going to be, way back when it was just Redstone, that it was just going to be a historic place.
Sure.
Here's a trumpet, here's
Absolutely.
a cornet, that was it.
Yeah.
So you do honor the history and the Mississippi River roots of the music here as well.
Yeah.
But you also have that huge education component in Chord.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about one of my favorite events that you guys have is Kidstock 2025. What's going on?
Yeah, so Kidstock is a really cool thing. Our education programs, first of all, run by Ben and I. They're amazing. And so Kidstock specifically is if you have a kid that's like, hey, I want to be in a band. I love watching, we were just talking about Steely Dan before we, I love watching Steely Dan, and I want to be in a band, and I want to play guitar. Well, Kidstock is the space where it's a week camp. You bring your kid in on a Monday. They come in, and they they come with knowing their instrument, things like that.
Because you want some experience.
Absolutely, some experience.
Some experience.
So if they play guitar, or if they want to learn how to play guitar more, things like that, especially in a rock setting, in a pop setting. So we put them in a group. There's usually 3 or 4 bands. We rehearse through the week. They get to pick their own songs. They get to make their band name, things like that. Then at the end of the week, they perform on the Redstone stage in front of all their family and friends and things like that. And it's such a cool thing. And it's so cool to see their faces when they get on stage and when they're done, and just the, wow, I just did that, you know? And it really sparks their minds. And we've seen bands that have done Kidstock, and they go and they do QC Rock Academy, and now they're bands that are playing out here every single day.
So you're like the George Martin, you know, the producer of the Beatles. You're that for the Quad City Kids, and it's not just 1 week. You have 3 of these.
Yeah, so there's 3 separate weeks of them, and your kid, I mean, they could do all 3 weeks if they wanted to. We do have kids that come in from out of town, and they do all 3 weeks, and they stay with their grandma in town. And then sometimes, you know, they'll do one, and then they'll do the one after. So you can kind of pick and choose, but yeah, it's 3 weeks. Yep.
Tell me about the other educational opportunities, because that's what you spearhead. That's what your specialty is.
Yeah.
And I know you love seeing the new young talent.
Absolutely. So we talked about the river and how, you know, the river renaissance is really big, especially in the Quad Cities. We talk about Big Spiderbeck. We talk about all those things. And river currents is one of our big things, where all the Davenport schools, 5th grade, they come through to Common Chord, and we talk about blues on the Mississippi, how it was created, and things like that, and things that kids they don't even know. They don't even have an idea of how their music that they listen to was created back in the 30s and 40s. And so I love doing that. We get to see all the 5th grades through all of Davenport.
Which is a great age to do it at.
It's great. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And they all get kazoos, and then I annoy the teachers, you know. It's amazing. And then
that would get annoying, a bunch of kids with kazoos.
Trust me, it does. And so so then we have our Intune Mentorship program, which is the one I lead. And that's after school. We go to different sites around the Quad Cities, like Martin Luther King Center, Boys and Girls Club, things like that. And we just teach them about music, and we mentor, and we talk about things, and they learn how to create a song, and they just learn about different parts of instruments and things like that. And then we bring in visiting artists so that they can learn what it's like to be a musician and things like that. So it's a very rewarding experience for sure.
One more quick shot for Live at 5. It's coming up.
Yeah, Live at 5 is coming up. The first one is going to be June 6th, block party, downtown. It's going to be super cool, fun games, all the stuff. We're going to be on the street. There's going to be a big stage. And then after the fact, we're going to have that silent disco party.
Yeah, that sounds
bring
great.
your kids, bring your family. It's all free. It's all super cool. You're going to love it.
Our thanks to Common Chord's C.J. Parker. Live at 5 featuring Ten of Soul and QC Rock Academy kicks off the summer concert series on June 6th at the Skybridge Courtyard in downtown Davenport. And registration is going on right now for Kidstock. Check out the details at commonchordqc.org. On the air, on the radio, on the web, on your mobile device, streaming on your computer as well. Thanks for taking some time to join us as we talk about the issues on the cities.
IHM VCU, we've always been here for you. You are and always will be our top priority. We care about your financial health, and we are here. IHM VCU is a proud supporter of WQPT.
Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Sing Group at Merrill, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 35 years.